It's now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Michael Suk, and it's a pleasure talking with him before the program began. He is one of our own, a native of Flossmoor. He got his medical degree from the University of Illinois here in Chicago. He is now chairman of orthopedic surgery at Geisinger Healthcare System in Danville, Pennsylvania. He comes to us today with a wonderful background of medicine and loving nature. He was asked to serve as a senior advisor on the Health and Recreation Department to the National Park Service, and in 2011 served on the National Park Centennial Steering Committee. In 2003, he was selected as a White House Fellow by President George Bush and served as Special Assistant to Secretary Gail Norton at the U.S. Department of Interior, and in so doing became one of the first medical doctors to actually serve in a position in the Department of Interior. He spearheaded an initiative there to develop a link between public health and recreation by coordinating 5 interior bureaus which managed 1 in 5 acres of land in the U.S. and that collectively receives nearly 5 million visitors each year. He also co-authored with Secretary Norton a law review article entitled "America's Public Lands and Waters, Gateway to Better Health," based on his belief that simple outdoor activities such as hiking, biking, and camping on public lands and waters can serve as a gateway to public health. He has spoken and inspired more than 200 organizations, and we are delighted to have him here with us today. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Michael Suk.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, everybody, for the kind invitation to come and speak with you. First, let me say congratulations on your 50th anniversary. That's a truly amazing landmark, and I think those of you who are involved in conservation efforts know that 50 years is a tough milestone to reach. I want to especially thank Jill and Jerry for the kind invitation to come, and Durs Anderson, who I believe also works on the staff at Openlands, who I think first put my name up to be considered as a keynote speaker, and it's really an honor to be here. Judith, congratulations, and I must say I do love the suit. My wife is a Brit, and she said it looks smashing. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about nature, a little bit about health, and then help us figure out as we go through a journey to see why the two, I think, are very connected. And I just want to start off maybe telling you a little bit about how I got involved in this. So I'm an orthopedic surgeon by training. I'm also an attorney. I have a background in public health. And in 2003, I was selected as a White House Fellow, as mentioned, by the administration under George Bush. If you know a little bit about the fellowship itself, it allows people in the private sector to take part in the federal government at a very high level, to have an opportunity to see, for lack of a better way of saying it, how sausage is being made. Not necessarily the best experience in the world. And here I am going into this fellowship program with all intention to become the next Medicare expert, or the next person who's really going to drive the way we do healthcare. And the president said, "You need to be at the Department of the Interior." And I said, "What's the Department of the Interior?" And truly, it was an amazing and ultimately a life-changing experience. And just by way of background, the president, like many presidents before them, have really take the task of pushing public health to new levels as really an instrument of or legacy for their administration. And that year was launched a program called Healthier U.S. Healthier U.S. was designed to better the health of all Americans, with one of the platforms being be active every day, or be healthful, do something healthy every day. And part of that executive order required all of the departments in the federal government participate in that activity. So as much as I said, "What's the Department of the Interior?" Secretary Gail Norton at the Department of the Interior said, "What the hell is this charge? Am I supposed to do this?" So she said, "I've got this White House fellow who's interviewing. He's a doctor. Guess what you're doing for the next year? You're going to be running this thing called Healthier U.S." And so thus was my introduction into the world of conservation, environmental stewardship, and ultimately what I think is a truly important connection between what you all do, what we do together, and then ultimately what I think is the next new message in terms of how health, nature are all very deliberately tied together. So if we go to the next slide, I just want to play a small video that I think is representative of society today. It's a short one, but I think you'll all connect to it in some way.
driving with a box stuck under his car. And like, who knows how long he was driving. I saw him pull out of the parking lot and turn right, and the box was still stuck under his car. So who knows how long he was driving with that box under his car. I like bet he got home, he pulled into his driveway.
Out in the sky. I'm not. Wow. You're like, if you, it's not.
I don't think it's real. I don't think it's real.
I see the lineup for cars. It's getting wasted. The Empire State Building is like really close to it, so it's a good.
And I did the best with what was in my hands.
Sadly for many Americans, that's a day in the life. And I think that is a little bit telling in terms of what we see out in America today. You can notice that many of those activities in which life is passing them by, and they actually happen to be in outdoor environments, missing the beauty of the nature around them. So I could talk to you for hours about something I'm very passionate about, and that's this connection to health, nature, and the way it interacts with our own individual lives. But today I want to focus a little bit, in the short time that I have, to talk to you about children, and why I think that the focus of children and their connection to nature is really the future it's going to set the foundation for the future of land conservation. So what we know today, what's happened to play, what's happened to children in education today? We know that they spend 7 to 7.5 hours a day in the indoor environment with very little unstructured outdoor play. And that 30% of kindergarten classrooms have essentially eliminated recess, which is exposure, key exposure, I think, to play. And what this has done is it's created an entire generation, I think, of kids and individuals who I think bring the potential for bad tidings in the future. And again, I'm going to play you a short video for what I think kids are experiencing today.
Winston, just one more inning, Grandma.
Ever notice how many things today kids can do without actually moving? A whole lot of things their parents used to do the hard way. So many kids' activities today seem to leave out the activity part, which makes exercise even more important for children. In fact, new research tells us the best time to enhance bone development is during childhood and adolescence. And just getting children to walk an extra 35 minutes a day could spare them the pain of thinning bones later in life. Healthy bones come from healthy habits. Encourage your kids to get up, get out, and get moving.
Hello. Hey, Grandma, how about another grape soda?
For more advice on how kids can build strong bones, visit aaos.org. A public service message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons.
Yeah, sadly, you can see what the problem potentially is. And I think that the connection to nature is missing through this generation of kids, and I think that we have an opportunity to involve them in greater activity purely through exposure, and that's directly tied to the land conservation efforts that this organization and many of your organizations are a part of. Just some simple facts. We know that kids who play outside tend to get injured less. As an orthopedic surgeon, this is what strikes me as an important issue. If you're active outside and you play and you do things, then you have much more balance and ability to deal with the physical frustrations of life. When it comes down to the development of children, we know that being outside and being exposed to nature makes them smarter. It increases concentration, self-discipline, language and collaborative skills, and awareness, reasoning, and observational skills. These are things that we would wish for all of our children, and we know that the studies, longitudinal studies over many, many years have demonstrated that simple exposure to nature does this. We also know that it makes kids stronger. And we know that advanced motor fitness, coordination, balance, and agility all come with the simple ability to go outside and play. And it buffers the impact of life stress on children and helps them deal with adversity. These are things that we would all wish for our kids. And finally, I think it makes them ultimately better. It makes them better in the sense that it reduces or eliminates bullying, enhances powers of observation and creativity, it enhances positivity and independence and autonomy. So who in this room would say these are terrible things? Nobody would. And we know that the studies are out there that definitely show this. But the question that we have to ask ourselves is, as land conservationists and environmentalists, is how often do we make those connections? I was looking through the brochure, and I think you've done an unbelievable job. This is a fantastic group of people. But I ask yourselves, in the major donors category, where are the insurance companies? Where are the hospitals? Where are the healthcare organizations? If I'm going to make the case for you that this is critically important to the future generations of our population, then shouldn't we be making that connection to health much more readily? And here I'm going to try to make that for you, and I would offer to you that I'll be available if you want to march up the hill to the big insurance companies, we'll go do it together. But I think that this connection is critically important. Part of the problem, I believe, is that there is a fundamental communication gap, I think, between those who preserve land and look at the environmental stewardship. And fundamentally, public health tends to be focused very much on the metabolic equivalence that we do when we're outside. So if you look at recreation and the role of physical activity, a public health or a doctor would say, well, what's your heart rate? What's your blood pressure? Did it help your overall cognition and put some wires on your head and figure it out? Whereas those of us know in this room that when I talk about this, and I appreciate the applause, but I suspect the applause was because it was very visceral. When I say this works, you know it works. But as a doctor, I say, show me the proof. And this is where the fundamental disconnect comes in. So the connection of nature, we talked a little bit about play, the world of play, and we're just saying unstructured. Go do something outside rather than sit inside. Sometimes doesn't hit the mark. And as much kudos as I give the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, which is my organization, they also came out with an advertisement that looked like this. Now, on the surface, you would say this doesn't look so bad. But think of yourself as the kid who's sitting there, and ask yourself, is he willing to do what the kids are doing on the other side? What happens is we focus very much on the world of physical activity through the world of exercise and sport. And what ends up happening is that sport gets more elite as you get older. So you know on a given summer day, certainly not a day like today, but on a given summer day in Chicago, right, you will see hundreds of children under the age of 6 running around playing soccer. Ask yourself when the last 40-year-olds you saw running around playing soccer. So is it the message that we're missing? Or maybe they need to be doing something when they're younger that is a lifelong activity. And so this kid is not going to be the one who's going to exercise or hear the message of exercise. The recreation message, I think, is far more important, and that's have fun, right? Nothing wrong with having fun, right? Maybe I can't measure it, but you're certainly having fun. And so in hearing this, we changed our advertisements, and it looks more like this, and this is through the same organization. Will they think it's as much fun once they know it's actually good for them? All right. So the key message that's also missing within healthcare is the simple fact that we tell people what to do. If you've gone to the doctor, everybody in this room has gone to the doctor, and I'm certain that every one of you has been told you need to eat better and exercise more, right? Everybody knows that. I do that all the time. So you eat better and exercise more. The critical question that's not answered, how and where am I going to do it? And that's the fundamental problem with the mental health care today, is we tell you what to do, we never tell you where. And that's where you fit in, right? That's where groups like Openlands and the conservation world and the world of land stewardship turn around and say, we've done this because it is a location for you to be, right? And maybe you can take the advice of your doctor and take a walk on a trail instead of signing up for the gym membership in January and giving it up in March. which happens every January. So hearing this and being part of the federal administration, I helped write an article with Secretary Norton. We wrote this. It's called Americans' Public Lands and Waters. We wrote this in 2004. And I called it the gateway to public health, or to better health, because I felt fundamentally that simple exposure to small activities in open space would lead somebody to go down the pathway of long-term and lifelong activity. We know that physical activity can be broken down into 3 cultural functions. There are those things that you do just to survive in the household. There are those things that you do for the purpose of exercise, right? And then there are those things that we do that are for the purpose of leisure, or they're inherently pleasurable experiences. So at the end of the day, when you look at where you can increase the opportunity for physical activity, how many of you want to do more housework? Very few. How many of you want to go exercise? Very few. But at the end of the day, if I say there's an opportunity to go have fun and have enjoyment, that's our opportunity to increase the world of physical activity. And ultimately, enjoyment is the key. It would appear that in the next few decades, the greatest potential to increase our human movement in daily life would be by increasing participation in activity which is inherently pleasurable. In other words, leisure, play, recreation, sport, contact with nature. This is why I believe what I do, because I think this is the key to our future. And we know that ultimately, after exposure to nature, it's a gateway to better health, because here's a simple statistic. Hiking, biking, and camping have the greatest longevity of any human-powered activity, outdoor activity. And what does it do is, if you do this as a child, you're much more likely to do things like climb, downhill ski, snowboard, kayak. And these are activities that we would consider fairly rigorous. We also know that 90% of adult participants started between the ages of 5 and 18. And this is why the intervention makes sense to me, is because our kids today, if exposed to simple activities in nature, we know we're going to make them better, stronger, and smarter. We also know that they may engage in lifelong activities, and this is the connection that's critically important. So when I worked at the National Park Service and also the Department of the Interior, we started an initiative on health and recreation to look at and hold its mission, to hold its feet to the fire on a mission that says the NPS conveys health benefits to the American public by providing places for healthful, physical active recreation in the great outdoors. What most people don't know is I actually wrote that sentence, which is now incorporated into the mission of the National Park Service. And so what we did is we began to look at measuring outcomes. We looked at increasing awareness of health benefits. We looked at, we thought that if we can encourage people to go into outdoor space, these are the things that we would scientifically try to understand. We would try to see if we could increase the awareness, we could increase the ability or the activity that they actually did in the parks, and then at the third outcome is we wanted to ask them if they actually changed their behavior at home. We launched this project in 7 active national parks, and we called the initiative Get Up, Get Out, and Go. What we ended up finding through this is that people, number one, learned a lot about their activity in the park. They were much more inclined to walk when they knew that it was only 5,000 steps to that or 3,000 steps to this particular landmark. And at the end of the day, it would also encourage them to do more within the park by simply getting the information they needed. And then the third outcome, when we called, they said we are more inclined to do it at home. So we proved for the first time that the parks actually played a role in your own personal health. We then went on to, in subsequent years, to form a group and developed a program called Park Prescriptions. And if so many of you look at this and say, well, what is the role of a physician in the world of healthcare, or in the world of environment and land stewardship today? Park Prescription was an organization that we started, or a movement that we started, where we had doctors actually writing prescriptions to their patients. Instead of saying, go do this and sign up for a gym, they say, walk 10,000 steps and here's your local park. What ended up coming out of this was an overall overwhelming sense that this land stewardship activity, or at least the activity that was driven by a healthcare physician, would then lead into some greater cognizance and awareness of land stewardship. This is where I think that the movement and the connection is really very important. The next generation of land stewards, to do the activities that you're doing today, really need to be grounded and connected, I think, some way to nature. Right? You do what you're doing largely, and I would bet everybody in this room will have one or two anecdotes as to why they're connected with nature. They remember something as a child, they did something with their kids, and they got that good feeling. So when we tie those things together, we say that the activity of the process of preserving the land is critically important to connect it back to children in order to preserve the next generation of land stewards. But I would just close by simply saying this. First of all, let me congratulate all of the awardees for their unbelievable work. I think everybody at the tables who have donated to this particular cause really feel connected. But I give you a challenge, and perhaps next year's, the 2014's Openlands conference, I'd love to see a number of health insurance companies buy tables around this audience, because I think the critical connection between why one's individual health is connected to the land environment, or to the land stewardship that you all do, needs to be continually fleshed out. And I'm here to help you if you'd like, but at the end of the day, I applaud you for all the work that you've done to preserve the lands that we currently have. And thanks from a native of Chicago, so thank you for all your work you do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suk, and I hope that it inspires you to go out and have a wonderful weekend outdoors. In closing, we want to thank Marion Perry of A New Leaf, these fantastic centerpieces that you've kind of peeked around and adored. They go home with the person whose birthday is closest to being 50 years old today. So you can all tussle with that if you want to admit your age, but that's who takes them home. So. Again, I want to thank you all very much. This has been a wonderful gathering of friends, and we hope that you continue with us on our journey. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you again.